Welcome, everybody. My name is Krystal Robinson. I am an outreach coordinator here at Heartland, and I am so honored to be doing our welcome today. It is an honor to have you here with us today as we come together to continue our important journey toward fostering a more inclusive and equitable environment at Heartland. As many of you know, our commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and action is not just a set of values we strive for, but a living practice that we actively nurture every day. The IDEA Collaborative meets once a month to ensure we at Heartland remain committed to those values. We invite each and every one of you to join in that conversation. We meet once a month. If you are interested, we'd love to have you reach out to me, Krystal with a K, Robinson, or Deborah Hicks, and we would love to see you at our next meeting. As we spotlight the Latinx and Hispanic communities, we recognize that this conversation is especially urgent. In the light of the ongoing challenges and systemic persecution faced within this community, it is crucial that we create a space for them to share their stories, educate, and spark important conversations around social justice, representation, and equity. The voices we will hear today are not just reflections of lived experience, but also calls to action to ensure that each and every member of our community is treated with the dignity, respect, and equality they deserve. I want to extend an incredible extend a thank you to our incredible panelists for being here and sharing your experiences with us today. I also want to thank each and every one of you guys for your continued commitment to creating an inclusive workspace where we all not only celebrate diversity, but we accept diversity. So as we begin this important conversation, I encourage you to engage, reflect, and take away new perspectives that will shape how we will all continue to make Heartland and the broader world a more just and inclusive place. Thanks again for being here.
Hello. Oh, that's loud. My name is Alex L. I'm one of the clinicians at Heartland Fit Grand site. And so I'm going to be reading the community agreements. And one of the reasons why we included this is to give us a foundation and how we want to interact with each other in a respectful and safe tone. That way we all feel comfortable and go into this with a kind of guidelines of how we're going to move through this event. So starting at the, bottom left corner-ish, I'll read it in a circle. So first off, we want to uphold what's confidential. So what we learn leaves here and what we say stays here. Next, we want to do our best, and that means being curious and respectful. Of course, we don't know everything. That's not really possible, but the best that we can do is our best in this moment. The next one is together we know a lot, and alone we don't know it all. So please be open to learning more and being open to what different perspectives have to say, and all of our wonderful panelists have to include in our knowledge. Next one is to lift your voice. Every voice is heard and respected equally. Lean into discomfort, because this is how we grow, and be open to whatever process is coming up for you today. And the last one is to take space and make space. So I believe at the end we'll have an open forum, and so feel free to take up some space if you have follow-up questions, and be open to making space for others, because we're all here to learn and take what we need from this event. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marie, and I'm a clinician with Heartland Child and Family Services at the South location. First and foremost, I would like to thank the IDEA Collaborative and Heartland organization for providing me with this opportunity to present the land acknowledgement. It is of utmost significance to take a moment to remind ourselves and not forget whose land we are on and the food and water that we prosper from. Please follow me on the screen as I read the land acknowledgement. The history of the Sacramento area and the people, it's rich in heritage, culture, and tradition. This area was and still is the tribal land of the Nisenan people. Sacramento was a gathering place for many local tribes who have lived throughout the Central Valley and foothills for generations and were the original stewards for the land of this land. We would like to acknowledge the Southern Maidu people to the north, the Valley and Plains, Miwok or Mewik peoples to the south of the American River, and the Patwin Wintun peoples to the west of the Sacramento River. We would also like to honor the Wilton Rancheria, the only federally recognized tribe in Sacramento County. We acknowledge that we are standing on the tribal lands of Sacramento's indigenous people. We respectfully acknowledge our debt to the enslaved people, primarily of African descent, whose labor and suffering built and grew the economy and infrastructure of a nation that refused to recognize their humanity. While the 13th Amendment to the Constitution technically ended slavery in the United States, we know that slavery's ongoing impacts are still felt by countless people forced through violence, threats, and coercion to work in the United States. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Hicks, and really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate all the work of the IDEA Collaborative in putting this event together for your learning opportunity. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel today. Each one of these people were gracious enough to agree to participate, and they all have very compelling stories and lived experience to share with us, as well as a lot of other knowledge that they've gained through all of their community work. So the first person that I'll introduce is April Ybarra. April has worked hard as a community organizer and advocate, especially for educational rights of children and people of color. I'm very happy to say that April was elected as a trustee on the Sacramento Unified School District School Board in November and took her seat in December. And that's a very influential position. Thank you, April. She's worked as a trainer for home visitors and family engagement, focusing on the particular needs of families of color. Our next panelist is Samaya Caraveo. Samaya is a youth commissioner for the city of Sacramento, representing District 2. She's completing her BS in psychology at Sac State, and she is an advocate for social justice and youth civic engagement and has won a leadership award from the student senates across California community colleges for her work advocating for Native students' rights. So thank you, Samaya. And next is Jenny Rodriquez. She is an economic development and seed partnership representative at SMUD, where she co-founded the Latinx Employee Resource Group and serves on the company's DEIB Council. She's active in leadership and service throughout the region, serving as a diversity and inclusion commissioner for the city of Elk Grove, and also serving on the Sac State Latinx alumni chapter in the greater Sacramento area. And she is the president-elect of the Association of Latino Professionals for America in the greater Sacramento chapter. So thank you, Jenny. And next is Rachel Rios, who is the executive director of La Familia Counseling Center since 2012. And La Familia is one of our colleagues in providing services for Sacramento County behavioral health. In 2021, Rachel was awarded the Exceptional Women of Color Award by the Sacramento Cultural Hub. Throughout her career, she's always believed in mentoring others, and for many years, she's offered her mentorship to Puente students. And our fifth panelist is the Reverend Antonio Reyes. He is the pastor of Project Church's South Sacramento multi-ethnic congregation, where he leads both Spanish-speaking and English-speaking services. He leads Project Church's Project Espanol, which is dedicated to focusing on the needs of the Latin Hispanic communities. So thank you, Antonio. And many of you know our facilitator, the Reverend Doretha Williams-Flournoy, who has been a wonderful partner for us in various ways through the years. And this is her third time facilitating this Voices of Color panel for us. So thank you, Doretha. Doretha is the senior pastor and founder of A Church for All. She serves as the program director for the Living Room and the Ripple Effect, two respite programs sponsored by her church with some funding from Mental Health Services Act money in Sacramento County. And she has served in executive leadership roles within clinics, mental health, and social service agencies. Doretha is a respected voice for equity in Sacramento County and has served on steering committees within the county's behavioral health services. So thank you all so much. And we are videotaping this panel discussion today, so it will be available for us to use in the future for learning opportunities. So I will turn it over to Doretha and the panel.
Okay. Wow. What a wonderful opportunity it is to stand before you again today. This is my third time. I hope I get 4, right? So give me some good results, good, check marks or 5s or 10s, whatever the number is, right? But I want you to know that I consider it an honor to facilitate the Voices of Color panel. And the reason is because I have watched Heartland for the last, 4 years or so, and have noticed the changes in the depth of interest within its staff and also within the community, and making changes, nuanced changes in how it approaches the community, how the staffing is organized. I walked through your building and I saw your cute offices and all. I said, this is a place that loves the people who work here. That's different. You don't get that everywhere you go. I know you probably know that if you've worked in other places. And so I'm grateful. Who's on the IDEA? Is it IDEA Collaborative? Who's on the IDEA Collaborative? If you've been on it, stand up so we can just see who you are. If you've consulted. Your ideas are working. It's working. This organization is making a difference in the community and establishing itself, and watching the next few years, you're going to hear of yourselves from other people, and that is because of the work and commitment that you've made to changing the ideology and way that you show up in community, and your willingness and courage. I was getting, I got this thing going on in my head about DEI now, So every time I get ready to say that, I have to stop and kind of pause and decide if this is the right environment. You understand what I'm saying, right? Okay, good. But your courage to continue the work, and so we really appreciate that. Today's panel is a reflection of that work, and they are here to share their life's experience in becoming who they are right now, so that it helps expand your understanding of the people who are sitting in front of you, the people that you're working with every day, the people you're doing outreach to, the people you see on television, the people you hear about on the radio. We can't be in all of their shoes, but certainly it's an opportunity for them to share with us so that we have an idea of what it might be like, right? Opening up our own opportunities for cultural humility. And so I'm going to ask the panelists to tell us more about who you are, where you've been, how you got to where you are now, some of the challenges or life-changing moments that helped direct you into the place that you stand right now. Feel free to share with us your social location, the place you came from, how, whatever food and environment that you lived in, what your parents did to help you grow and become who you are right now, the challenges that you see facing us today. And so I'm going to give you a few minutes to just kind of share that, and then we're going to have some opportunities to talk and go maybe even a little deeper and allow the audience to ask questions. Okay? So April, you want to start? Sure. All right, great, thank you.
Okay, so my name is April. Before I was a trustee in Sac City Unified School District, I was a kid who grew up in Sacramento. So I was born in Sacramento, but my family migrated between Texas and California because that's where my family is rooted. From a really small town in Texas where I had the same kindergarten teacher that taught my father kindergarten. Just to give you a sense of like size of town. And I actually grew up in my early childhood years in in the 90s, what a middle class all American family looked like. My father worked blue collar jobs. My mom worked part time and was mostly like a homemaker, as they used to call it, right? But what I didn't know is that my family had their own struggles because my father had an addiction. He was a functioning addict and he was addicted to heroin. And so when I was finishing first grade, he was on a bus to prison, and my life literally flipped upside down. And we were on a Greyhound bus back to Sacramento before I could even process what was happening. And so I went from this like all-American middle-class living to now living in a low-income neighborhood in Sacramento, in Oak Park, if you're familiar with the Sacramento area. And I was immediately met with an environment where my aunt lived with 4 of her kids and her husband, and my grandmother and her 3 youngest, and one had a child recently. And then here come me and my sister and my mom. And so my life rapidly changed, and what I thought was true wasn't. And that's where my struggle began. Now, when I went to school, I was given a label eventually, even though before getting to Oak Park, I was a very high achieving student. I was actually one of the what they call gifted and talented students. But I had a teacher who gave me a label when I was going into 4th grade, because he decided I would be no different than any of my aunts or uncles or cousins that he taught before me. And what happened was I carried this label and I believed the label and I lived up to the label. And it got me into trouble, and then we ended up back in Texas where I went to high school and experienced racism for the first time in my life from a teacher. And I had a guidance counselor who encouraged me to drop out of school and pursue my GED because she thought that's what was best for me. Now, thankfully, I had the right support systems in high school. I lost my father to his addiction when I was 15, and my life spiraled for the next few years. I struggled with mental health myself. I had a couple of hospitalizations as a teenager growing up. And so when I became a mom, I knew I didn't want my kids to go through the same struggles. I had a challenging first few years with being a mom, and one of them was wanting to protect my babies from all of the harm that I went through. So fast forward to where we are today, they've definitely had their own struggles, and I've had some along the way. And those struggles have led me to the advocacy work that I do. And it's the reason I like to be a voice for those who don't have one. I actually didn't plan on sharing this, but I also recently became a victim of domestic violence. I was, and I've gone through some really challenging hoops and hurdles just to try and get a restraining order, and that's a new thing that I'm experiencing. Um, I actually I didn't expect to share this either. I experienced a similar situation right after I was elected. I had somebody harassing me and did not agree with my political views, but also sexualized me while they let me know that. So I've gone through a lot and I've been through a lot, and I plan on sharing some more about that. But as a trustee, I see the city differently, especially when it comes to mental health services and all of the funding cuts that we've recently received in education as a nation, but specifically in Sac City. We were being a triage for mental health services in our student support centers, and we don't have funding for that anymore. So I'm kind of really worried about that. So I hope that this discussion, I can bring some more of that out and I can answer some of your questions. But yeah, I want to leave time for other folks to share about themselves as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samaya. Just like April, I was born and raised right here in Sacramento. I come from a family of 5. My parents had me when they were 16 and 17, so as you can imagine, we definitely had our struggles growing up, but my parents, I love them so much. My mom's actually here with us today, so it's kind of like a full circle moment. Growing up, my parents definitely tried their best to always show us their best foot stepping forward, no matter what the challenge was. Whether my dad, he also does blue collar work. He's at the post office. He's a mechanic. And my mom, growing up, she was a stay-at-home mom. And I have 2 younger siblings, so family was always the biggest thing for us. I come from a huge family. We actually all come from Mexico. So we're very proud of our heritage. It's definitely shaped who I am and how I've navigated myself through the world. Just like April, I think some of the first times that I experienced maybe some prejudice, we can say, is definitely in school. I never ever saw myself as being different from people around me. I always just kind of thought we're all people. We're all here. We're all doing what we got to do. And I remember sitting in a classroom and a teacher's aide, she came up to me and she was like, "Well, it looks to me like you need a lot of help." She was like, it looks like you could probably use some extra support from me. She was like, what's your grade in this class? And I was like, well, I have a high B encroaching on an A. And she goes, oh, you do? You really? She was like, I thought you needed some help. I thought you were having a lot of trouble. And I remember just thinking, what on earth gave her that impression? And I've just always been in environments where sentiments like that either make or break people. I see a lot of people that persevered through those kind of microaggressions, right? But I'm sad to say that they're still very prevalent, and especially in education, when students are at a point where they're deciding who they want to be, what they want to be like, what they don't want to be like. Especially as a person of color, I feel like it's especially prudent to be more mindful as to what's going on around you. So that's kind of how I got to where I am here today. I'm a youth commissioner now for the city of Sacramento. So one of my main goals is to help youth persevere, especially through experiences like that. I come from Del Paso Heights, District 2, which is North Sac area for those of you who know. So yeah, it's really hard to get in touch with the youth and show them that there is more to this. There's things past this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I really try my best to kind of show youth and others that these experiences don't define you. You can either use them as a means to stop you where you are, or you can use them as fuel to keep going. So that's a little bit about why I do what I do.
So I'm just gonna say disclaimer, I'm a crybaby, so if I start crying, I don't know if anyone up here noticed my eyes tear up when you said your parents are in the audience, and it's happening. I just met her within the last year. She's amazing. Just letting you both know. But I get emotional because, ironically, today is my first son's birthday, and he's in the Bahamas. Like he's like bye with his wife. I'm very proud of them. But I share that because that's part of my story. But I'll get to that in just a second. So, born and raised here in Sacramento. Both of my parents are immigrants from Mexico. My dad is from Guadalajara, a little town called Tlajomulco de Zúñiga. It's about 40 minutes out of Guadalajara. And my mom is from La Ciudad de Mexico, so she's a proud Chilanga. I know a lot of people don't say that anymore. I don't know what the story is behind that, but we'll leave that there. But growing up, I'm the eldest of two, and they didn't have my brother until I was 7. So I was the only child for a long time and kind of, learned to be on my own. And then I turned into basically the second mom when he was born, right? You help your parents. They're working, they're musicians, so they would like do their gigs. And I always thought it was just a hobby, but you start when you get older and you realize they were both state workers, but it doesn't always cover the bills, right? You got to do what you got to do. So pretty much stuck with school. I was always the good student and all my homework and all the things. And then here comes high school. And I'll kind of backtrack. So it's funny. I'm born and raised Sacramento, raised in South Sacramento, just around the corner from Little Saigon, but went to school in North Sacramento. So Northgate, Real Tierra, Gardenland area. So people always like, wait, but you said you're from South Sac. I don't understand. Like, again, parents have to do what they have to do. We'll just leave it there, right? Come high school, it was like, no, we got to get back to where you live. We're not paying anyone anymore to take care of you, and get back to South Sacramento. So I went to Florin High School. But I want to talk about that part because going into high school, I always knew that either I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I didn't have people to look up to that could tell me how to get school or money for school. So then I had the 2 older cousins, which were like brothers to me, and they were going off to the military. And they would, say, oh, I'm going to go do this, this, and that in the Army. And you could never do anything like that. Like, you could never go to the military. They would just tease. And I think it was right around sophomore year, I started looking into it. And I told my mom and dad, I said, I want to go to the Marine Corps. And my mom's like, no, you're not. I'm like, but yes, I am. And I did my research, and fast forward to my 17th birthday, she gets a knock on the door. I already knew he was coming, but it was the recruiter. And, well, it was a few weeks before my 17th. And she was upset, of course, but I was like, I want to do it. I want to go. And just to give you guys context, this was in November of 2000. So, we didn't know what was happening the next year, right? But I wanted to go. And my mom and dad it was hard for them. They're like, yeah, I don't know, but if that's what you want to do, they had to sign over their rights to the military because I was going to be a minor upon graduating high school. So they did. I spent my 17th birthday at MEPS. For anybody who doesn't know what MEPS is, that's where you go and enlist into the military, and I was there all day. Now, let me give you a little context of that day. I'm the only girl there signing up for the Marine Corps in a baby blue, what's now popular again, angel. It said angel across the front, like in sparkles. But I was there. I'm going. And I'm looking around, and like all the other girls, Navy, Army, and I'm the only one going to the Marine Corps. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to prove them I could do this. They left the year before my cousins did, so I said I could do this, right? So fast forward to a few months later, I was dating someone, and you can probably guess what happened next, right? So then came the conversation of, not only do I have to tell my parents, but I have to tell my recruiter that I can't go. I got a due date of September 26, 2001, or excuse me, October 13th, 2001. And it's either I'm gonna be killed by them or my mom, I don't know, one of the two. They weren't happy, neither one on either side, military and parents, but I didn't believe in aborting. I'm not against it, I'm pro-choice, right? But for me, I didn't think that was a thing for me to do. So fast forward to months later, and I didn't get kicked out, by the way. That was my biggest fear. I thought they would kick me out for sure. But fast forward to 9/11, and because my parents were state workers, they were told to stay home because they didn't know what would happen. And I used to have to go to doctor's appointments, and I would get monitored because I was so tiny back then. And I remember us watching the news at the doctor's office as I was getting monitored, and I think that's the moment my mom was like, I think this baby may have just saved your life. So, and who knows, right? We don't know what can happen, but things happen for a reason. And fast forward to September 26, 2001, is when my son was born. So happy birthday to him in the Bahamas. But I share that because I'm very proud. I'm now a mother of 4 kids altogether. But one of the things, and I'll leave you all with this, and so for the sake of time, but one of the things that I remember having that conversation when I told my parents, they called my padrinos. For those of you who don't know what that is your godparents. And I remember my godfather coming over. This is an uncle that doesn't normally check on me, but they were there that day. You know, they wanted the chisme that day. They wanted the tea, what's going on, and of course they found out I was pregnant. And I remember him pulling me into the room, just him and I, and he says, "You know what you have to do, right?" And I'm like, if it's what I think you're telling me, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, "Well, you're gonna end up just like all the other girls in the welfare line, and you're gonna become the next statistic, because there's not going to be anything else for you to do." So fast forward to everything that Deborah said about who I am. I don't want to say it was because of him, but I always feel like that's been in the back of my heart. Like, oh, I won't let you be the one to determine and shut me down just that quick. And so it's always been that, like, I got to do this, not just for me, but for everybody around me that didn't see me growing up, and be able to look up to someone that hopefully be able to trailblaze for someone that may be in my position one day. Yeah, thank you. I think you just, oh, thank you. I think you just slide it. Oh, right here. There you go.
Technology challenged. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Reyes, and what amazing stories. I feel honored to be at this table with you all. So I'm also born and raised in Sacramento, lived here most of my life, except for a short period of time when I moved to Los Angeles. Oh, sure. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Take it off. There we go. All right. So born and raised in Sacramento, other than a short time when I lived in Los Angeles. You know, very much like most people of color, you never really feel you know where you belong. My father was born in Fresno, my mother born in Mexico, DF, also. And wherever I went, I was always the only Latina, wherever I went. I went to Phoebe Hearst, and there were not a lot of people of color. We moved to Tahoe Park, and I went to Donner School, and there were not a lot of Latinos at that school. So not until I was in junior high school that I really got to see other people like me. And at the time, for those of you who are Latina, who have parents who are from Mexico or their country, their home country, you know that you're not from here or there. How's the saying? Ni de aquí, ni de allí, right? Because you're not Mexican enough to be Mexico, even though we would go to Mexico every year. And you're not American enough to be American. So I became a Chicana. And that drove my parents crazy during junior high school. Because when we would go out and work in the fields, you know, because that's what we did in the summer, I would try and organize. And I learned a very important lesson. My mom said, "This is your summer job. This is their life. If you're going to be an advocate, you need to be responsible. You're jeopardizing people." That was a really good lesson at that point, right? So I was a good student. I was fortunate to get involved with things like the Barrio Art Center. And so I was around like the greats. I call them the greats here in Sacramento, Jose Montoya, Joe Serna. I mean, all of those folks that were doing programs for young people, right? And to understand that. And because I was a really good student, I was a whole year ahead in high school. So I was ready to graduate when I was going to turn 17, and I had gotten a scholarship to go to Santa Cruz, and my parents said no. Because I was the first one to go to college, and they didn't know what that meant, and they didn't want that financial responsibility or burden. How are we going to pay for it? What are we going to do? And so what do you do as a young kid? You don't know what to do. I ran away. Because I ran away because they got mad at me because I came home late from a Maya meeting. And I'm like, if they're gonna be this way to me, how am I gonna have a college experience if I can't even be involved in the things I wanna do? I went and stayed with friends, and it was through the advocacy of the counselor, which is why we need people of color and culture in all of our schools, who said to my parents, Consuelo del Rio, said to my parents, she's not going to go home. And if you don't let her graduate, you're going to ruin her life. She will not have a high school diploma. You need to let her graduate. Because they had to give permission for me to graduate a whole year early. I was 16, I was going to be 17. And then through the help of the concilio, because there was a concilio here in Sacramento, they said, if you got into Santa Cruz, you're getting into Sac State. Let's get you into Sac State. And I was able to get into Sac State at 17. And so I didn't know the first thing about college, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just started taking classes that I liked. I was taking psychology 200, and I hadn't taken psychology 1. I think they changed the rules because of me. My last semester, I was taking all the lower division classes, right? And then I had an opportunity to work at a nonprofit called Consejos. And Consejos was downtown, and right across the street from it was an organization called La Familia downtown. We became sister organizations. But my path took a different path. I went to go work at Diogenes Youth Services, working with runaway kids, working with kids that were system involved in terms of child abuse, and really looked at that. My husband, who I'd met at Consejos, started working for the old California Youth Authority. And back then, the California Youth Authority were the leaders in juvenile justice rehabilitation. We know they lost their way, but back then they were a place where people would go for help. And he said, you need to apply for this too. So I applied, and I became a parole agent in Los Angeles, in South Central, from Sacramento. And I'm like, but I don't want to work for this system. I want to help people. But guess what? I found they were the same kids that we were helping in these organizations who were further down the system. So fast forward, I worked in Los Angeles. I created a program called Casa Esperanza as a halfway house for people to not get revoked. I got promoted, came back to Sacramento. I went to Stockton Parole. I became the first Latina director of juvenile parole in California. And then a few years later, I became the agency head. Like, what is a Latina? It's only the second woman in the history and the first Latina. But at that point, we'd lost our way. And most of my work had been in parole, helping people transition back after they'd done their time, transitioning. Every parole office had a school, had mental health counseling, had employment offices. But our facilities had really lost their way. And I just was so hard to see all these young Latinos and African American men in our facilities and see the waste of what was happening. And so my husband said, hey, I hear they're hiring at La Familia. And by the way, just real quick, one of my jobs in Youth Authority had been to fund programs. And I'd funded programs all over California for youth centers and youth shelters to build their facilities. And La Familia had been one of the programs that had been funded. And so I said, well, no, I have a job. I'm a governor's appointment. I can't just leave. And so he said, but you don't love your job anymore. This isn't what you wanted to do. So I had to go through the process and ask the governor's office, I think I want to leave, and I'm going to go do this and work in the community because you don't want to burn your bridges. And they made me wait because we were in litigation. I waited, and the agency waited for me, and it feels like I came home. I made a full circle back to La Familia. And at La Familia, I feel that all those things I've learned from the young people whose lives I saw, we try and address. 50% of the kids who were coming into Youth Authority had mental health issues, and we were just diagnosing them at that point. But they had that mental health issue before they came here. They were just being tracked into the juvenile justice system, not into a healthcare system. So that's my story. That's where I'm at. We're still doing the work, and happy to be here.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one who wants to cry through all of these stories. I want to thank you for your strength and for not giving up. I'm a mess emotionally, so bear with me if I do cry as well. No, well, my name is Antonio Reyes, and I was born here, but they took me to Mexico when I was a baby. And so I grew up in Mexico for 18 years of my life. I grew up in a context where there was a lot of ups and downs. I went to 13 different schools before I graduated high school. And I live in 2 different countries by the age of 10, different locations. And so I learned how to adapt fast and let go fast. And that was just part of my story. I thought that was just normal for every human being. And so growing up in my family, I was in this city called Uruapan, Michoacan, which is probably one of the top 3 cities, most dangerous cities in Mexico at this point. And growing up in that city, my dad was a drug lord. And I grew up in constant danger, but just I didn't know. I was just a kid. I was just living life, upper middle class life. I was enjoying life, getting access to things that I didn't know how I have access to, but it was just given to me. And grew up coming to the United States constantly. And I never wanted to be here, if I'm quite honest with you. I just love being in Mexico. I love being over there. It was just very different for me. I also didn't know the language. So being here was complicated for me. But then when I was in Mexico, things got very, very dangerous. You know, I remember being in elementary school, my dad hiring police officers to escort us from my house to the school back and forth because it was my life and the life of my mom was in danger. And to me, that was just another day. And so all of the shows that we watch in Narcos and all those things, they were just things that I just literally lived, and I thought it was normal. And so by the age of 18, they assassinated my uncle. And I remember them telling me that I need to leave and flee the city because I was the only son of my dad in the city, and they were concerned for my life. And kicking and screaming, I had to fly to the United States. And I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I was in a new country, didn't know the language, didn't know the context, didn't know what was going on, didn't want to be here, and I was lost. My parents split. We lost everything. The drug lords took our house from Mexico. We lost everything, and we ended up in a small room with my mom and me, only her working in the field, and that was it. And I got confused. I didn't know what to do with my life. And in my desire to pursue love, belonging, to pursue purpose and direction, I crushed into the story of Jesus. And my life was changed and transformed by the story of Jesus and the church. And I didn't know there was such a thing. I grew up in a context where my friends were atheists, agnostics, and we would make fun of people that were religious. You're in the culture, you know, in Mexico, you're Catholic, most of it, by culture and by decision, whatever you decide. And so to me, was not something that was appealing nor attracted to me. And coming into this space when I found myself, when I found purpose and direction and community, and I found that story so compelling to me, I was like, I want to do this for other people. I didn't know what a pastor was a thing. I didn't know church was a thing. I just didn't know. I was really out of my radar. But I told myself, if this is what it needs to bring hope and love and connection to people, I want to bring that. And I felt that part of my story was going to be to reach out to the Latino community, the first generation Latinos, the Spanish-speaking Latinos. But definitely there was something great for me. Through that, I found voices that believe in me, that took care of me, that protected me, that helped me heal, that helped me take steps forward. I hated school. I was one of those kids that said, I don't go to school. And I'm the first person in my family to achieve a higher education diploma because of voices that walked with me through the process. I remember the journey of doing that, of I had to run through 3 different people my papers because I didn't know how to write in English. I had to run it because they had to help me spell things and write things and all those things. But I remember I told myself, I want to be that kid that tells other people that say they can do it, that we're capable to do it. And so through that journey, I have been able to, we opened a church with my wife in the city of LA, in this small city called Southgate. We serve people in the community there, bilingual community, Spanish and English community. And 4 years ago, we decided to move to Northern California, and we end up here in Sacramento. Right now, we are in the South Sacramento area trying to serve our community. This is my first year here. And it's been lovely to be able to connect with families in that community, hear their stories, see how can we serve and love them. And honestly, I personally did not feel I'm gonna save anyone. I'm just in the same boat as anyone else, trying to figure things out, and we're gonna do this together. And so that is a little bit of my story being here.
All right, Antonio, you're just gonna take me there, right? You know, it's a common thing for folks to say about people of color that we are spiritual in nature, connected to some religious base of some sort, that when we are in need of some kind of support, that we direct them to, in the Latino community, it's often the Catholic Church. And I haven't heard any of you say anything about that. And then you, Antonio, shows up and doesn't mention the Catholic Church at all, and that you were hanging out with atheists in Mexico. So tell me, where does spirit kind of show up in your lives, in your community, and how does that fit? Because we as providers are often told, oh, you should, make sure that they get connected to some community base, and the church is usually the place where people send you to first. And I want to know how that shows up in your life, or not. I love what you said, and the complexity of where you've been. And I think it's an important way to kind of normalize, first of all, who we are as a people and what works for us and what doesn't necessarily work for us. So who wants, Antonio's already taken us there, so we'll double back to him. But of the four of you, who wants to go first? Go right ahead, April.
So, when I think of spirituality, I'm also Christian, and it really is dependent on the folks in the communities that you live in, I would say, as a starting point. So for me, the changing factor, because I was born into Catholicism. I was an infant when I was baptized into Catholicism, but I didn't have good experiences in the Catholic Church. So growing up, I felt mixed feelings. But in South Sacramento, right off of 19th and Franklin, there's this little church called the Community Church of the Nazarene. It actually was founded as a Latino American Church of the Nazarene, and our pastor, and this is really interesting, has our church actually has ties to La Familia, right? And so our pastor, his wife, his daughter, all did they're in social work, and they work for the school district, and they all had internships at La Familia. And I share that because it truly means that it takes community partnerships for you to connect in a spiritual way. And I connected to them because I went to buy fireworks with my mom one year, and they had a fireworks stand at the church, and they invited us to Vacation Bible School, and they engaged us in a loving way, and that's how for me personally, that's how I made that connection to spirituality. Now, as a person, where we are today, and just understanding all of the confusion around religion or higher power or whatever you want to call it because of the political climate, it really is about just showing love, and that's my approach. So if I go out into my community and I demonstrate to folks, even if we don't agree on whatever, if I demonstrate love first, then that's what folks will gravitate to. When you're building the foundation on love and relationships, people on their own will want to know what it is about you that brings you to that peace. And so that's how I connect now. So I don't, there's no perfect answer, but that's my answer.
My experience has been very different, to say the least. So, growing up, my family was Catholic, my grandparents mainly. My parents never necessarily pushed religion on, but even in our community, religion is very prevalent. It's very sacred to a lot of people. And I believe one summer I was doing a Bible camp study in Colorado. I was visiting some family that were still practicing Catholicism. And unfortunately, by somebody there, I was assaulted. So, and that happened to me at a very young age. So, I think I've inherently linked maybe the two together. So, it's been very tumultuous for me. Also, as somebody with indigenous roots, that also adds some complicated feelings to say the least. So, my journey has primarily been focused on getting back to that ancestral knowledge. My family's descended from a small tribe in Mexico, the Raramuri people. And so, some of what we believe to that aspect is that you should do good unto others and the world because it's good for the world, it's good for other people, not for any kind of self attainment. It's because you should be doing good for others. So I've been trying to lead that by example, no matter what kinds of people I come across, differences aside. So, with that said, I've taken it upon myself to explore different scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita's, the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, of course. So I've been taking it upon myself to find teachings everywhere that I can.
So, how did you learn about your tribal roots and make those connections? And
Actually, my grandfather, he has never been a man of many words. So trying to figure this out, even to he almost could barely talk about it. He mentioned a lot being made fun of and teased growing up. They would call him slurs like indio because he had really darker skin. And he told me a story about his great grandfather. The way he tells it, people told him that his grandfather almost descended from La Sierra Madre. And this is the mountain where the tribe lives now. They're still secluded. They're one of the only ones to actually escape complete colonization by the Spaniards because they hid in this mountain. So he tells the story with pride, but unfortunately, I don't think he was raised to walk through life with that same native pride. So here I come generations later, and I'm putting the puzzle together. So it's definitely been interesting trying to touch back with that ancestral knowledge while also trying to show my siblings, look, this is a past that we have. We should be looking into this and learning more about that. I've been really trying to get them to connect more with our culture, especially living here as a Chicana as well. You know, never being Mexican enough or American enough, not to mention Native enough now, right? So we've got all this intersectionality. Intersectionality, I can't emphasize that enough. It has played such an important role as I navigate all these different social situations, settings, experiences, even other people who are also intersectional.
So for myself, grew up, raised Catholic. I've completed all my sacraments, communion, confirmation, and all the way up until getting married by church. But I've always been what I guess I identify as like the not so strict Catholic, if you will. And I say that because I remember finding, okay, so I'll take it back to St. Rose, which happens to be right across from La Familia. And we went to ask for permission in the church to get married, right? And mind you, this is fast forward now. I'm like, I think I was on my third pregnancy, but we were planning for the following year to get married. And we're speaking to, rest in peace now, but Monsignor Kavanaugh, and Monsignor he had that reputation of like, he's mean, like he's scary. And I always wondered like, why I get people being strict, but when you go to church, like you're not supposed to be scared, right? Like I guess you could say they're like the principal at a school, but for church, you should be able to speak to them and feel comfortable and feel welcome. But he was older and he's earned his stripes, I guess. And so you just go in there, head down, and just ask for permission. And I still remember the day I'm sitting there I'm like maybe 5 months pregnant or so. My husband and I, or well, now husband, were, yeah, so we'd like to, ask for your permission to get married by church. And he's like, okay, and my husband hadn't completed his confirmation. So he, of course, had some stipulations for that. But then he's like, okay, well, let me take down your address. And so he's taking down, and we're living together, right? We have a family. So he's writing down his address, and then he asks for my address, and I give him the same address, and he looks at it. It takes him like 2 seconds, and he throws his pencil. He goes, "You're living in sin." And I'm like, well, that's kind of why we're here. We're trying to trying to fix that. Right. I'm like, so can we not get married? I'm confused. And he's like, well, yes, but you're not, we got to do this right away. So a lot of people don't know that the day, October 27, 2007, that's not our real anniversary date. That was our official, according to everyone else, but he made us get married like within the month of us asking for permission because we were living in sin. So, but it's stories like that, and I think back to the day when I told my godfather about the pregnancy, my first pregnancy, and for someone who was a godparent based on the Catholic Church, if you really stick to what the belief is that you can't abort. And his first word was like, you know what you got to do, or sentence, you know what you have to do, right? So if someone is supposed to be my godparent by church, why are you encouraging me to do this, right? So it's always been, so consider it, Catholicism is definitely our base. It kind of grounds us to make us, feel connected to God. We'll go to Mass every now and again. My daughter is my youngest of all the 4 children. I have one daughter, and we're in the process of her quinceañera. And so one of the conditions was, I will throw you a party, but I'm sorry, you got to finish what you started, because I know the family's going to ask for Mass. And if we're doing a party, we're doing all of it. So we've been doing the classes and going and doing the volunteerism and whatnot. So that's the basis. But if you look at my wrist, I got my crystals. I believe in sage, like anything that's gonna protect me from all the evils in the crazy world that we live in. I'm with it as long as it makes us feel better and connects us all together. Yeah.
Okay. I still don't know how to turn this on. Is it on? Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, good, good. So I did not grow up raised Catholic. My mom was Catholic when she came from Mexico, but my dad was working, so she was home, and people came and knocked on the door, and somehow they converted her. I grew up in a church here in Sacramento, Templo Calvario, a Pentecostal church, and the hard part about that was that everything in church was always fear. You're going to hell. You can't go to the movies. You can't have friends over. You can't do anything. We were in church 4 days a week. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday afternoon, Friday evening. I mean, it was a lot. And when I was in junior high and high school and wanted to do all these activities, it was always a conflict. And all my friends who were Catholic, the Latino friends, they were having fun. They had a kermés after church. They were having fun. There was mariachi, and there was no mariachi at Templo Calvario because music was a sin, right? And so I said, yeah, I can't do this. And so when I went to college and I left, I did not come back to the church. My husband was Catholic, but not real Catholic, so, but I decided I was going to raise my kids Catholic. And it happened that my babysitter was down the street from St. Rose's, right on 37th. See, everything comes back circle, right? And so all my kids were baptized Catholic, and they all made all their sacraments. And my youngest son went to Christian Brothers, which cost me a lot of money for him to go to Christian Brothers. And in his senior year, he decided he didn't want to be Catholic. He took world religion and said, this is a very oppressive religion, and I don't want to do this. Like, you could have told me that 4 years before and saved me a ton of money. But I support that. You know, he's gone on his journey to look into Buddhism and even looked at Judaism, and I support that. Um, I was really mad at God because I lost my husband, and I haven't really reconciled all that yet. But I know that I have a spirituality. My mom was very religious still to her last day, and she always blessed us. And you know, we kind of came to an agreement that spirituality is religions are people made, and spirituality is in your soul. And I have belief in a higher power. And I think to April or what somebody said is, you know, having those tenets of being good to other people, being a good steward for others, taking care of others, all of those things are things I believe in. I haven't gotten to a place where I can follow one religion, though. But it is an important part of our culture and our community. As I see community members, we can't assume that they're all Catholic, because the Latino community is actually the biggest community leaving the Catholic Church. And that's a huge shift. And so when we see community members, more and more we're seeing community members that are not Catholic. So we just have to respect whatever their faith is, and then, you know, address it that way. So, yeah.
I love the fact that you're a pastor. Life is very complicated for pastors. And so I want to get your take on what you've heard, your experience, where you've been, where you have been, and what would you say to us now about all of it?
Yeah, I think part of what I can perceive, you know, I think spirituality is an intrinsic need in every human being. And I can just speak for myself. How honest can we be in this room? Pretty honest? Okay. The reason why we make fun of when I was young is because we saw the abuse and the tension that always brought being part of a religion. By nature, I'm a rebel. And so seeing the abuse and the authoritative spaces that we find ourselves constantly, we didn't like that. And so my generation, at least a lot of us, walk away and transition completely out of it. Did I still believe there was a higher power? Yeah, sure, why not? And so I think that was part of the dynamic in my own life, that I didn't want to be part of something like that. And so the challenge came when I believed the lie that everything was completely wrong and everything wasn't completely unhealthy. And I didn't give a chance to the healthy expressions that exist out there. And so to me, I feel like it's for me is have you ever tasted very bad Mexican food in bad spaces? Have you? I have. Have I give up on Mexican food? Oh, heck no. I'm always gonna find a place. I'm on the look of the best tacos in Sacramento, let me tell you. If you know it, tell me. But I don't give up because I know that there's an intrinsic craving that I have within me. And so the lie that we can believe is because you experience an unhealthy expression is that you no longer need it. And I don't think that is the correct approach to it. I think you're negating and dismissing something important about your soul and what you need and crave. And so I think that we should be on the look of healthy expressions, which I believe there are. My wife grew up very similar to you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, babe, you didn't have any childhood. I'm so sorry. I mean, just laugh at her. But, you know, I'm like, I'm so sorry, babe. But I think I'm so proud of her because she didn't give up on it. And we were able to get out of those spaces and find a healthy expression. That now our desire is that we can create that for others. You know, we're not perfect. We're broken. Inconsistencies exist in us. But my desire is to create a healthy expression where people can feel authentically, they can come to that space, who they are, and they can find hope, direction, and purpose. But once again, I think I would say, don't give up on it. Even if you experience toxic spaces and unhealthy spaces, that need will still be there. Try to find a healthy expression because they're out there. Definitely they're out there.
take your mic back. I have one more question. I'm one of those people who, if there's an elephant in the room, I'm gonna call it out. And you're the only guy on this panel. What do you think about that?
Right.
What do you think about your place on this panel right now? I guess for us, symbolically, you're representing the male voice, but what are we missing in not having sort of a full spectrum of the community here?
I'm not sure if I would put it in the category of missing. I think part of my desire, and this is just my story, I can only speak for my story. My desire is to see the full expression of who my wife is. And I want to set her up to be the best version of who she was created to be. I don't feel less because she's more. And I don't feel less because she's thriving and flourishing. And I think that a lot of the times I see at least in the woman in my life, my mother, my family, my tias, aunts, all of them, they always have to be less because as men, we haven't been able to raise the roof for them. And I think a lot of the women in my life, they had to figure it out how to be strong and not give up within those spaces. And when I hear these stories right here, they're powerful. And to me, they're so inspirational that we need more of that. As men, we do need to step up. And we need to create it. My journey is to create healthy expression of manhood with men that want to love and kindness and compassionate and empathetic. That is not weakness, that's strength. And my desire is, as men, I can show that to anyone in this space, including this panel. So I'm not sure if we're missing that from my perspective, but I sure do. I love to position the women that are here so they can tell their story, because I don't feel less. I just love and I'm inspired by that. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that's what I would tell.
You're making me wonder, what do we need to do to make sure that, or not to make sure, to inspire men in your community to be more like you, or at least approximating some of what you're saying right now in their lives? How should we go about that?
I will tell you this. They're out there. The reason why I'm walking to that place is because I have met men like that. And they have shown me that I'm capable to love deeply and still be strong. And I think the lie that we have believed as men, at least in my community, is that we have allowed our brokenness, our inconsistencies to take the best out of us. And we haven't vocalized because we are afraid that we're going to be less. And I think part of the journey as men is that we need to heal all of that. Skill, we have it. Knowledge, we have it. The inner world is the one that needs to heal. And I think as men, we cannot do it if we don't heal first in our emotional, spiritual, mental health. And I think that part of the journey for people that I've seen that inspire me to be like this is that I've seen how intentional they are with that. And that they're gonna be intentional with that, they're not gonna give up on it, and their brokenness, their inconsistencies, their upbringing is not gonna dictate how they're gonna live in the future. And I tell myself, I'm not gonna be the victim of my brokenness. And I do believe that my best gift to my son now, it's not gonna be my church, it's not gonna be what I do, it's not gonna be the back account, is that I broke any unhealthy, toxic pattern that I inherit from my parents and from past generations. My best gift is that my kid can live a healthy expression of what a man looks like without dealing with the messiness that I deal with. And so I do feel like part of it is not skill, it's the inner work that needs to happen so that we can have healthy expressions in men.
That was beautiful. Um, you know, our young Latino men get stereotyped. This whole machismo thing is not right. Yes, we have issues. Everybody does, right? But when you look at the reality of machismo, it's love for your family. How many young men do we know they'll give everything for their family? They'll do everything for their family. We like to work from a strength-based approach. That's important. And we focus on those strengths that you care about your family. So here's how we improve that. And given the opportunity, they will talk about it, they will do it. We do have a men's support group of Latino men, English and Spanish, and they did a video because they wanted to do what you just said, tell other men it's okay to talk about it, and come and join us, let's talk about it. You know, for women, so many times our culture said, calladita más bonita. Have you heard that? You're prettier when you're quiet, right? And so there has been a big push for Latina advancement, for Latinas to move forward. Latinas are graduating from college at incredible rates. I mean, they're amazing and they're awesome. But we can't leave behind our young men. We cannot leave them behind. I applaud the governor for starting the initiative on looking at young men and boys of color and making sure that we're coming up together, right? But it is part of the stereotypes that we have that the dominant culture puts on defining who our young men are and puts them in a situation. I have one daughter and three boys, I should say, my stepson. And growing up, they had to face different challenges that she didn't have to face as young men. So their challenges are real for them to be able to be sensitive. But they saw their dad cooking. They saw their dad taking care of them. They saw their dad doing all of those things because they know that that's what men do. And so I think we need to change the narrative around all of that. These are what Latino men do.
Well said, well said. So April, I want you to start this part for me. They've already started swimming in it, okay? But I want to turn it just a little bit by asking you, with all the challenges and traumas that you've experienced over your life, what kind of support do you wish could have been available to you? And you can take this anywhere you want to, it's up to you. But what would have helped you? You've survived, and well done, well done. But if you could have changed the narratives in some way, what would you have dropped in there that would have made your life better?
That's such a deep question. There's so many ways I can answer that, but I think how I'm going to answer it right now is that if I go back to when I was a child, I think there's such a big push right now for us to be more inclusive with ethnic studies, but I never really understood what it meant to be a Chicana. And I think if I would have learned that early on, it would have sparked interest for me to understand my culture and my background. And then I think that would have helped me. And of course, there's the aspect of family life and your morals and the things that are taught to you along the way. But having that from an early age, I think would have helped me to understand just who I am as a whole. And it would have made some of these challenges just a little bit better in the moment. Now, I'm going to take my comment a little bit further because I love everything that was shared today from Antonio, but what Rachel said, a word, right? She brought up the word machismo. And I think part of what I'm saying is if I would have learned and understood, there's two dynamics I think that are not talked about. Machismo is definitely one of them, which is this patriarchal way of looking at things, right? But then there's also Marianismo. And I'm not here to school you guys on that, so I encourage you on your own time to look up machismo and Marianismo and what the two mean together. But when I learned about those two things, I was already an adult. But those two things really shape, I feel like, how you identify early on as a woman. Because I was taught from, as a young girl, that my role was to be submissive and my role was to be quiet because calladita te ves más bonita. I heard that a lot growing up. I've always been an outspoken person since I was a kid, and so that was definitely something I heard a lot of. But now that I know that, I'm able to push back and I'm able to create spaces where I understand that mental health is still very taboo in the Hispanic and Latino culture. Even in my own family and the dynamic that we're in, facing mental health challenges with my kids or even in school, not having that support from my partner, because instead of understanding the situation, he would say things like, oh, you're crazy, oh, she's crazy, talking about our daughters. Like, no, sir, she's not crazy. She inherited genes from us that gave her mental health problems that we need to help her get through, right? But so yeah, those, I mean, I can go deeper into it, but really, like, that's my quick answer for you.
So support. I have to say my mom has probably been my biggest support through everything. Me and her have also definitely have our ups and downs. I definitely also was that, that angry teenager, just mad at the world, trying to figure things out. I think I remember this one time she was taking me to school, and I think it was around the first time that Trump was running for office. And there's this guy outside the gas station we're at, and he has a bunch of memorabilia, which is one thing. I didn't even think anything of it. I was just like, oh, like he's selling T-shirts. Like he's out here doing what he got to do. Then I don't even know if she remembers this, but we walk and get closer, and he actually had hung up Dora dolls, like lynched Dora dolls. And I remember thinking, like, is that what people think about us? Like, is this a shared attitude towards me and my community? And I think that's when I really started thinking about my identity. And I think in figuring that out, my mom was definitely my support in ways that she probably didn't even know. My mom very much broke a lot of stereotypes, especially about the ideals of women being more submissive. So seeing her break through those barriers gave me support I didn't even know I was getting to be able to be myself. Luckily, although a lot of these stigmas about men and women, they were very prevalent growing up, but I think with her support, I was able to be like, you know what? I don't need that. I'm not buying into this story. I have my own story, and this is just simply the most shared one. Whether you think it's right or wrong, I think seeing her be able to decide for herself, I'm not going to be that way, made me think I can do the same. I can very much choose to continue to be outspoken, continue to speak out against things that I don't like, both inside and outside of our community. People have never liked that, but I always found it, I kind of learned to take it with a little bit of amusement, like, I bet you don't. I bet you don't like that. I bet you don't like that I'm able to sit here and call you out for this. So that's kind of been my support, just being able to take a little amusement out of the negative things, to be able to, you know what, I see you, but I'm not gonna be you.
You and your mama did a good job.
She's right there.
I know, I've been checking her out ever since you said that was your mother. I said, ooh, can she really sit in the room in the hot seat? I see. Well done. Well done. Go right ahead.
So I think for me, in terms of support, I wouldn't necessarily say support. I mean, I guess you could say family has always been there. As I mentioned, I never got kicked out, luckily, when I became a young teen mom. But I think a lot of that, it, we're kind of talking about the machismo, and then there's like two ways that I kind of compare. So like my dad, I love my dad, and he's always been really helpful with my mom. But my mom came from a strong mom. My mom's like, you about to be up in this kitchen too, and you're gonna help me with this dinner. My mom's very strong, right? But she also comes from my grandmother, who anytime I'm going through a rough time, I'm like, if my grandma did what she did, and I'll tell you all in a little snippet, but there's no way I can't get out of this. And so just to give a quick story on that, my grandmother was born Los Angeles, also taken to Mexico as a young girl, grew up, she barely knew the language, but when she got married, my grandpa kept her that term, barefoot and pregnant. Like literally, she had a total of 8 children before she moved back to the States. And my grandfather was a musician. He would leave her for days and come back, and she'd be pregnant, have another baby, and then he'd be gone. Like it was just this, and he would, be abusive. And from the stories I hear, they lived a really rough life even there. And it wasn't until her sister was like, why are you putting yourself through this? Like, you have a citizenship. You could come back. Like, and her sister lived here in Sacramento. So essentially, my grandma made the tough decision, and she came here and started working and would send money back to my aunt to take care of the little ones, and one by one got their documentation fixed to bring them back here. So I think about that, and I'm like, how can a mother leave like her babies like that, like not in a bad way, right, but in a sense of taking them out of that to give them a better life. So when I think of that, I think of when I hear like machismo, that was like the true representation. Like, you're about to be my wife, you're gonna cook and clean and take care of these kids, and that's it. Versus, what she instilled in her daughters, because she ended up with 6 daughters and 3 sons. But essentially that turned my mom into who she is, and then my mom's like, yeah, that's not what's not going to happen in this house. So I think having that, and then my husband's very helpful and has been supportive through my journey and all the things that I'm involved in. So it's been helpful to have that. But in terms of just one thing I would like to see in terms of support community-wise, when I did decide to go back to school, I think that was the hard part, is not knowing where to even start. Of course, that was back in the early 2000s, but still not having the counselors to really like sit through, and not sure who all here has gone through like the community's college, and it might be better now, but back then it was like, let me just pull out the book, what classes do I need to take to get to this, to this, to this, and figure it out. And I look back, I'm like, God, it took me so long to get through community college. Like, could it have been done an easier way? And just not having the guidance. And I'm the first of all of the grandchildren that completed my studies as well. So I never had that person to look up to, So in terms of community support, I think that's where it would be nice to have help.
Yes, so if they didn't have that in 2000, you can tell way 100 back years ago, they didn't have that either. My guidance counselor thought I should, after I did that aptitude test, I could be a good hairstylist. Look at my hair. I would not have been able to support myself, okay? So I think having people that look like us, having those aspirations, hearing other people's story, that they struggle too, they're human. You see stories of someone who did it all perfectly, they had the perfect life and everything, and you're like, okay, well, I'm already not gonna be there, so that means I can't make it. But when we hear these stories of these amazing people who've all had challenges, but they're still thriving and surviving, that is amazing, and that's what we need to do, to let our young people know that you can do what you want to do, and having them see us, having us see that other people that are doctors and other positions, and no matter where you are, that you can contribute something. I think that was missing in my life. I didn't know any Latinas who were doing any of this, but they were there. They were there when I got to college. I saw people, but what if I had never gotten there? What if I just didn't take that step, right, to do that? So I think that's really important. And we do have to break stereotypes. You know, my mom for the longest time kept saying, "You're not going to get married. You're not going to have kids." And I was like, I want to go to school. I want to finish college. There were 6 of us girls, so we definitely had voice in the house, but it wasn't the same. And so even when I was married and I had this career, you know, my husband moved to Los Angeles for me, and I had 2 little babies. He stayed with the babies until they could get there, and he could transfer. He moved back here. We transferred all over, and she kept saying, and my mother-in-law was actually more supportive, but my mom was like, "Mija, ¿qué estás haciendo?" You know, like that I was doing something wrong because I wasn't taking care of my kids right, or I was letting my husband do that. So I think we have to support each other too. We cannot criticize each other, you know? We have to support each other. So having more role models, representation, talking about our struggles is important so people know that, yes, we're human, we are gonna struggle, and you can do it too. And then supporting each other.
I think just want to echo what you were saying. I think it was so good. On the book of Unstoppable Force by Irving McMahon, it says that the heroes we elevate and the stories we tell that will create the culture of an environment. And I do believe that is true about cultures. I think the stories that we have told and the heroes that we have elevate has cost us a lot for so long. So we have to change the narrative. We need to tell a better story, and we need the representation. Do not sanitize the story. Show us the brokenness, show us the struggle, because that brings hope. Now that you achieve it, that's great too. But I think the brokenness and the hard part, do not sanitize it, because that is going to inspire us to say, "Oh, I feel the same way too. Oh, I want to give up too." And so I think the part of it is that we need to tell a better story. And I think this story started changing that narrative for us and for the community. And so to me, that is the loudest thing that I can do. I want to change the story for people, that there's a better and different story that we can tell and we can live.
Any new nuggets you want to drop our way, April?
I don't know if I would say new nuggets, but I would definitely say, I'll take it back to the phrase, like, you don't judge a book by its cover, right? And I think this applies for any culture, not just the Hispanic culture. And just knowing, like, you have to meet people where they are. We come with different backgrounds. Like, there's so much I didn't share today. You know, my ex-husband is undocumented. I lived in Mexico for like 17 years, raising a family in a whole nother country, and then having to integrate back to the country I grew up in. That was challenging, but it allowed me to see the world from the eyes of my people, of my ancestors, right? And so moving forward, I know that if I want to change the future, I have to pour into folks the way that they poured into me. So just know that you're in the right space to do that. And you don't have to be Latino or Latina or Latinx or whatever you want, whatever the person wants to be called, right? Because it's us as individuals, how we identify. But just know that there are folks like us in spaces that want to be your allies, and we want to be there for community. And I think that just going back to the last question, or just the conversation, to continue the conversations, being able to have these conversations and taking advantage of them, I think, is also something to tap into, because that's how change happens, is having those uncomfortable conversations. And really just understanding that when you're hearing from families and their traumas, you're only hearing the really scary parts. And there's a lot of details that don't go into it that have such huge impacts. And yeah, I mean, just tap into the folks that are doing the work and know that we want to see the change, and that's why we're in the spaces. And don't hold back from thinking that it's gonna bother folks, because truly, like, we are not us five. There's a lot more of us in Sacramento region. So yeah, I don't know what else to say really.
Go in a different direction. Okay. Um, I have heard you say that some of you have said that you were born here and then went to Mexico, and then lived there for a period of time, and then came back here, and that there's this transformational kind of experience that happens both ways. And it keeps resonating with me that we are in some very difficult times right now. And we are all trying to figure out how we are going to live and thrive at this point in time in our lives. And to me, it doesn't matter what political party you may be a part of. Everybody is going through some change of some sort or another. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to reflect on how you're responding, managing what's going on right now, what you're doing to take care of yourself, maybe what your community, because each one of you have a different community that you respond to and that you're a part of. You know, I'm going to take the liberty of calling them your tribe. And I just want you to kind of share with us what they are going through. And this is my last question, and if you have questions from the floor, we'll take those, okay?
I heard everything you said, but I'm not sure I'm gonna answer this correctly. So basically speaking to like the what we shared today. Oh, okay. How am I showing up in the world we are in today? Is it I in the mini listen, I still live in a low income community and I work 3 jobs to provide for my kids in addition to serving my community for a very small stipend. Okay, so I think that in that, the privilege is that I speak 2 languages. And much like some of what we heard earlier today about the challenges around not being able to access higher education after high school, that still happens today. So I didn't have the same collegiate, or I don't have the same collegiate background as some of my colleagues here at this table. But what I do have is a lot of life experiences that have shown me to look at the privileges that I have as an underprivileged human being. So being able to speak 2 languages opened my eyes to that. When my daughter started kindergarten, she came with 2 years of preschool from Mexico. And when I was in Mexico and she was going to school, I had to be the janitor sometimes because that was the system that they had. I had to pay for school and I had to pay for all of the stuff that happens at school, and it's not a choice if you can pitch in or not. It's happening. And very specific required materials, and from the uniform that you wear to the pencil that you write with, right? And then we come back to the States where I know public education is funded and I know there's rights around it, but for whatever reason, my people are not being given the stuff that their kids. Listen, Latino kids bring a lot of money to our schools. And so, being able to educate myself on that and then say, I have to do something different. And so I'm also a firm believer of divine intervention. I believe that everything that I've experienced in life is with reason, and I try to look at the situation as a person from the outside and see, how do I help the next person so that if they go through this, they don't have to go through it with all of the challenges that I did? Or how can I be part of systemic change so that these challenges either don't exist, or when they come up, we have an easy solution? So being able to take all of what I've gone through and use that as a privilege because I have the availability or the privilege to speak 2 languages. So honing into that in a time like now where I'm hearing kids tell me that they don't want to speak Spanish because they're scared. So using the advantage of having a platform and being able to speak to that in our last board meeting and saying, hey, if you can speak 2 languages, do it and do it with pride. So being able to take advantage of those spaces and experiences.
So, as it was mentioned earlier, I'm also a Sac State student right now. So, I don't want to say getting the privilege to see this, but I've been seeing a lot of our community in the way they feel attacked. They feel like they're being targeted, and they are. They are. I'm a president for our Association of Latino Professionals for America. And it's to the point where, I'm out here, I'm trying to talk to students, I'm trying to help connect them with resources, with people, with mentorships. And in meeting one of our newest members, before even really saying his name, the first question he asked me is, how do you feel about immigrants? And he just, so attentive, he was like, how do you feel about immigrants? He was like, I just have to know. I'm like, before I can even decide whether or not I want to stay. It was actually at our last mixer. One of the students, they were like, how do you feel? And I was like, well, we support them. We're here to protect them. I'm like, I'm ready to jump all in. And he's like, I just had to be sure. And that to me was just like, people feel the need that they have to figure this out first. They have to figure out what the room is like first. That's a red flag. And I'm studying psychology right now, so I'm always looking for the red flags in people, in rooms, in social contexts. And that to me was just like, for everybody who feels like these things are not happening, like we're not being attacked, we're not being targeted, it just was like, we have all these people who feel like there are. And it just begs the question, what context is being considered and what context is not? Two things can be true and opposite at the same time. So it just made me feel more of a need to try and build a space where people can feel free to add their own context, whatever that looks like, whether it's who they are, where they come from, the people that they care for, the people that they support. I've been trying to do everything that I can to make sure that there's space for all these different types of contexts to all exist at the same time. Right? Just because something is not happening to you, that doesn't mean it's not happening to somebody else somewhere else. So that's what I have to say for that.
Jenny.
I get emotional because it's so frustrating. It's like I think as a country, we move like 10 steps forward, and then it's like we're 20 steps back. And I have a really good friend that's a dreamer, and she's on what she thought was a path to something. She's like, I don't even know if to call it citizenship, something. It's to the point where she gets frustrated because as much as she may vent, she feels you have the privilege of not having to worry about it. And that makes me feel guilty. We can do everything we can and try to, if you're at the table, bring someone with you. Keep making the change as much as you can, but at the end of the day, it's frustrating not being able to say it's going to be okay because I don't know if it's going to be okay. When you have those close friends looking at, I want to purchase a home one day, but I can't. I need a new car, but I can't get a loan. Like, what do you do? So it's to the point where she's said, I think that at this point in life, like I've given all that I have. I pay taxes too, and people don't want to realize that. And she's like, it's frustrating. And she's even to the point where she's like, I think I'm just gonna look into buying something and moving back to Mexico and not continue to have to live in fear. And she lives in the heart of like the Northgate area where you hear about ICE going up and down. So it's frustrating because I just feel hopeless and helpless at the same time, right? It's like we can keep doing all of the things, but I can only do what I can in my community. And I'm happy to keep the work going and not keep my head down. But I think we're at the point in life where I don't even feel safe. I was at a concert, and now it's like these events that happen, right? You're like, this is like the prime spot. If they want to pull up right now, they'll just like take us all. And we were at a concert like 2 months ago, and we come out, and everyone knows Doko gets crazy, like in that little section by all the different parking lots. And there was just all this chaos that just happened. And my cousin's like, what's happening? I'm like, forget that. I'm going that way. I'm not even going to try it. Because at this point, we just look at, and you keep hearing about people just getting picked up and disappearing. And I grew up, again, South Sag, Little Saigon. Florin Road is one of the partnerships that I support in my day-to-day work, the business district out there. And you hear about this Home Depot situation, and ICE just pulls up and takes people, and one of them is a citizen. And again, I haven't done all the homework, but you hear these stories, and it's like, who's to say that that wasn't my dad who goes there all the time? Who's to say that wasn't my brother who fits the description and, oh, I love him, but he loves his loud car, right? Who's to say that's not my kids who they just, they like the old school cars and they fit whatever description. And you just don't know. So I think for me, it's like continuing the work, not giving up. We know that with every administration, there always seems to be some sort of ruckus, whether it's pro or not. But I think at the end of the day, it's just continuing to educate, continuing to have the spaces. Like in our case, she's with the student chapter of Alpha, and I'm with the professional chapter, and just having those spaces so that people feel safe. But I think one thing, if anything, hearing that is reminding that as we continue to host these events is having some kind of plan. And I'm realizing that as I'm sitting here right now, what is our plan? If we're all in a space, what do we do? So I think education, having the space to feel safe, and the resources as much as we can. And I think being in the community, we hopefully have that, and we're creating that. But then at the end of the day, it's like, as we know, things shift, and just remembering that as you're doing this, and because I know I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I just want to be a cheer mom, because my daughter's a cheerleader. I just want to be a cheer mom. But making sure that you have someone after you that's going to keep the effort going.
Thank you for asking the question, because in my community, we feel it. The Supreme Court said it's okay to racially profile us. It doesn't matter your citizenship status. They said it's okay to racially profile us. It is open season on Latinos, and there's not a lot of people standing up for us. And that's the heartbreak. I don't see leaders standing up for us. I don't see systems standing up to protect us. Yes, there are some, but not in the numbers that there should be. It isn't just about immigrants, it's about all of us. I pulled this thing out because the Hispanic Chamber just did a report on the status of Latinos in the region. 81.8% in this region are citizens. The narrative that we are all undocumented is ridiculous. Of the 18% that are not US citizens, that doesn't mean they're not documented. People have visas, they have refugee status, they have other resources, they have other status. And yet we're being defined all of us are targeted, regardless of what our citizenship status is. Our children, regardless of whether they have immigrant parents or not, are afraid to go to school. I don't see systems doing anything to take care of them. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable what's happening right now. We've talked with our different law enforcement organizations to say, what do we do? Because when that Home Depot raid happened, nobody wanted to come in. Talk about mental health. Our mental health cases did not want to come in. And they weren't necessarily undocumented people, but everyone was afraid. Nobody wants to go where there's police action. Maybe the car isn't registered. Maybe something else, they haven't paid this ticket. And they just don't want to be in that situation. And so we had to do a lot of damage control and ask law enforcement, what do I do? What do I do if ICE comes here? What are my protections? What are my responsibilities? We had to put signs on my door that says private, no public, so that we could protect office spaces. Give me a break. But that's what we had to do to protect our office. Fortunately, because of COVID, we had where you got to push the button to get in, so people can't come in. But think about that. We're a community organization, and we've got to harden our space. That's crazy. It shouldn't happen. Fortunately, our community is resilient. We just had our health and safety fair this weekend. We normally have 500 people. We had 300 people, but that's still 300 people who came and got information about services available to them. It's not okay that we are being targeted. It's not okay. And the trauma that these children are experiencing will last down the road. When you talk about mental health issues, these type of traumas will last down the road. They may be a little one right now, but they're gonna remember this. They're gonna remember how this was, and when they get older, that's where you see behaviors that are not appropriate, right? We have to do something to let them know they're okay. We need to do something. You know what? This region is benefiting from Latinos. Even the Republican assemblyman at this event said, this region is dependent on Latinos. If Latinos were not here, it would fall. Folks, we are 70% in the workforce. We are the economy. If we were our own nation, we would be the 6th or 7th largest economy in the world. We have to change the narrative. You're right. We fund the school district. We got kids. Most of those schools are majority Latino, but yet I don't see programs for Latinos. In colleges are getting Hispanic serving institution money, and I don't see programs in those colleges.
We're not getting it anymore.
So it's not okay. We need to change the narrative, and we need you to help us, because today it's us, and you know that tomorrow it's going to be you. We've been down this road. We've seen what happens when you have this type of behavior. It isn't just about this person. It's about not seeing everyone as equal. And we need to address this issue. So thank you for asking that.
I want to take a different approach, if you don't mind. I think, as you see, as Latinos, we are not monolithic. We have different expressions, and everybody is dealing with this in a very different way. And nothing from our part, you know, as a human being, I'm trying to do the best I can to serve my community. But also, the last couple of days, the last week, I cried, I was angry, I was frustrated. And my father-in-law works in construction, and I hear all the stories. Hey, don't go to the store, do this, do that. I hear all of that. And I think the danger for just speaking to myself is that hopelessness becomes my reality. And I refuse that that is my reality. And part of whether you believe Jesus was real or not, Jesus grew up under the time pressure by one of the wildest, most strong powers that ever existed in humanity, that is the Roman Empire. As a slave, And that didn't stop him from living in purpose, generosity, caring for others, serving others. And I have adopted that. That even though I have reasons why to be a victim, I'm not gonna allow that to be my narrative. I'm not gonna give anyone else the power to dictate how I'm gonna feel, how I'm gonna live, and how I'm gonna serve people. Even though I have reasons why, I refuse to live in hopelessness. And I believe that it's gonna come from the bottom to the top. I think that all of us taking responsibility for a small portion, we can make a huge change. And I believe that part of it is really taking responsibility for what we can do, what we can do. And I love that we represent different spheres in this table because we cannot do it all. And I think that part of my own narrative is I want to help my people to tell a better story and to serve in some way, somehow. If I don't have the resources, I can call someone from this table and say, hey, help me help this person, and collaborate. I think we miss the importance of collaboration and how powerful it can be if we all come together as one, that we need each other, that we can collaborate. And so, to me, this has been part of my own narrative that I've been dealing with in the midst of the ups and downs emotionally that I've been going through. And part of it is because I'm always connected, and they always assume something of me because I'm a pastor and I'm in an evangelical world. They assume that I'm something that I'm not. And that is unfair, that I don't say enough, that I say something that I don't say. And that is draining. And to me, it's like, you're not gonna tell me how much I love my people. You cannot tell me that. And I'm gonna serve them, I'm gonna love them well. And if I have it, I'll give it. If I don't have it, hopefully I can figure it out with someone else. But the narrative that I'm gonna tell myself is not gonna be that I'm gonna live in hopelessness. I'm gonna give that away to people so that we can build a better future.
Wow. I thought the other panels that we had were powerful. These folks have done the work. You have given us gifts. You've given us perspective. I'm sitting over here feeling you now, and I'm grateful that you were willing to be vulnerable, to be open, be honest, and to talk about the challenge of where you are right now in your lives. And so, if you don't mind, if you could just stand and give these folks a standing ovation for being present and willing to do this work today. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. We have a few minutes left. And so, if you have questions, Deborah has a microphone.
Several of us do have microphones, so if you raise your hand, we'll bring you a microphone if you want to make a comment or ask a question.
Thank you so much for all your messages and your testimonies. It's so beautiful to hear. I think something that I'm navigating, this is a selfish question, sorry guys, but I have experiences with sort of like split households where you have one parent who's super pro mental health of like, I just want my kid to feel better. And then I have the old school parent that's very much like machismo and not really understanding what I am trying to educate them on for mental health reasons. So how do you navigate that split household when you have someone that is so, I guess like pro mental health and wanting to do the work and changing the household maybe, and then you have the other parent that's kind of like, well, that's their problem. Like, what do we do? How can I, help in that instance?
Thank you for asking that. So at La Familia, the name says it. It's not just about the child, it's the parents, it's the family, it's the tios, whoever is part of the family. And so we incorporate and include everyone. Our founders wrote a book back in the 70s called the Enchilada Approach to Reawakening Therapy. And I say it was the 70s, okay? The name is a little different, but we've since named it Cultura de Salud, Culture of Health. And in that, there's 8 principles that we look at and we use with our Latino families, actually with all families, and it works with other families. And really understanding that everybody has their perspective of how they see it. And so not to invalidate the one parent who wants to believe in their way, but to talk about why, to listen, why do they want to do that? And then also the other parent too. And the other thing that we do with Latinos is somos chistosos. We like to laugh and tease, right? So we use teatro. We use teatro a lot. We just did a little play where the mom is criticizing the daughter, and the daughter, you don't listen, because we did surveys with kids, and the one thing kids said they want from their parents is for them to listen. So we're doing a summit called Vamos a Escuchar, let's listen. And the mom is saying stuff, and then the girl says, you don't listen. The mother says, okay, I'll listen, but let's make the tamales while I listen. And we break the tension by using humor, by using culture as a part of, I know this is part of the culture and we believe this, but let's look at it differently, right? And people open up. They really do open up, because you're not saying that they're bad, and you're not saying that their culture's wrong. You're saying this is your experience, what you've learned. But what if there's a different way? And your child is coming through with different experiences. And the thing is that most parents want the best thing for their kids. They just think they know what the best thing is. And so when we give options, vamos a pensar esto, they usually are willing to look at that, but just including them all part of it. Because if you tell them they're wrong, we're Latino, can't tell us that.
Is there someone else?
Hello, there you go. For me, opening up, a couple weeks ago, I was in therapy, and I was struggling because I'm 35 years old. I have a whole career. I'm doing what I love. And I'm still craving the affirmation from my dad. I'm still here. And I keep telling therapists, why am I still here? Why I haven't learned anything? And I remember her telling me, have you tell your dad that? I was like, no, I haven't tell him. Because he doesn't have the tools. He doesn't have the language. He doesn't know how to. And I was just trying to excuse him. And she told me, give him a chance. Give him a chance. And if he doesn't know how to, it's okay. At least you give him the chance. And I think part of what I learned in that moment is I was trying to excuse them. They don't know. And I didn't give them the chance to try to understand me. And if they didn't, my future and my health is not attached to their yes or no. It's about my personal journey. And I think part of it is I know that I'm not going to be able to change my mom's mindset or my dad's mindset. And that is, I can try as best I can, but if I can't, I need to take ownership of my own journey and say, this is my journey. And just give them a chance. And if they decide to or not to, that is a plus, or that is just part of you give them the chance to do that. That would be my 2 cents on that.
First, let me say thank you guys, each one of you, for coming and sharing with us your guys' stories. They have been very powerful. As you guys are talking, one of the things, well, there's a lot of things that come up, but especially within this current climate, and knowing that there's a lot of apprehension with reaching out outside of just their, the Hispanic culture to get that support. Somebody I do have, my family is Mexican, but I know that I present differently. So I utilize my strengths to help advocate for the community. I'm just wondering though, do you guys have any suggestions on how to bridge that gap for our families who are still apprehensive to working with others outside of their direct culture, so that way we can just continue to empower and motivate and share that we're here to support and help, doing whatever it takes, But yeah, that was kind of my question. Any suggestions on that?
I'm going to go ahead and jump in. And I think initiatives like this one are a great place to start. I think where the disconnect starts happening is when people feel like they are not safe. Because if you don't feel safe, you don't really feel like talking about what makes you happy. You don't want to open up. You don't want to experience new things. When people who are not safe start to feel closed off, that's when we need to start making more of an emphasis to create spaces where people can open up. One of the biggest things right now is people do not feel safe being in person in places like this. I'm helping to be a part of our Feria de Educación. Members of Sac State help put this on, and it's a huge resource fair for mental health, for careers, for methods to go to college, for parents who are thinking about going back to college, for community members who want to know about more how to get involved. They've been doing this for over 10 years. Over 10 years, hundreds of members of the community show up to this event. They meet people, they network, they talk to each other about their stories. And we got the heartbreaking news that because of everything that's going on, it will be held virtually this year. So I think it's really more about us finding more ways to connect than just being here, because for some of us, that's a privilege, and for others, it's really not an option. So I think being able to have more outlets for this connection, because I know there's a lot of stigma right now about phones, especially in youth, but I feel like right now more than ever, social media, all of the live streams we're able to do, I've been on, virtual live Q&As trying to help bridge these kinds of gaps. And I think it's just really about getting more creative in how we can reach people, especially right now.
I also
Go
want
right
to
ahead,
say,
Rachel.
oh, go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Hey, folks. Once again, appreciate you guys from right here. Sorry. I appreciate you guys for coming out here and sharing your stories with us. I know how hard it must be to be as vulnerable as every single one of you have been in front of a bunch of strangers, essentially. So I do appreciate you guys. I appreciate your hearts, and I appreciate the efforts you guys are putting towards the Latino community. As somebody who is not a part of that community, I feel like my question kind of goes with what Rose was saying. How would you like, from each and every one of you, how would you like for us to help support? I believe Ms. Rios had asked earlier, had stated something earlier about if this is happening to your guys' community, it's going to happen to the rest of us. So how would you like somebody from outside your community to support you, support your efforts, to become an ally, if not an accomplice, if you will?
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking that question. And I think it kind of answers both. You talked about collaboration, and that's really important, especially in the mental health arena. We do children's mental health, 0 to 21, but we also do a short-term adult mental health program for Spanish speakers, but we're always looking to do a warm handoff. So we look for partners that we can collaborate with, because once we've earned their trust, if we introduce you, they trust you too. You become part of our family, and you become part of that circle, and that's what we need, is for folks to become part of that circle. And we've had a couple of meetings. There's a Latino Jewish coalition that got together and talked about how do we support each other, and it could be something as simple as, let me take the financial burden off of you. I mean, this is small, but it's big. We do diaper distribution. I have to rent a pickup to go get the diapers to bring them to the center. They said, no, don't waste your money. We'll go get the diapers for you so that you can use the money to help the other community members that need it in some other way. So small things like that make a big difference, but more importantly, I know that they're with me. I know that they're supporting me, and now my network is, if I need something, I can call on them and say, hey, do you know anybody in this area that can help me with this resource, or who I can talk to, or something like that. So reaching out to different organizations, saying, what can I do? How can I help? Is so important. because then we feel you. We feel you with us, right? And let's face it, we aren't going to be able to stop these immigration raids that are happening. And everything we've heard, it's only going to get worse. I mean, we met with our Congresswoman's office 2 weeks ago. It's only going to get worse as they hire folks. So what can we do? How do we protect our families? Giving them information, doing emergency preparedness, because know your rights is pretty much out the door. They're not following rights. It's emergency preparedness. How do we prepare you if something happens? And helping us to do those type of workshops, or helping us just to be there in spirit and support makes a big difference. So pledging your support, being there, helps us keep going. Thank you for asking.
Go ahead, April.
So I everything that Rachel said, yes, ditto. I just want to add to everything you were saying. Absolutely, and this applies for being an ally for anyone, really. Is just knowing the difference between trying to be a hero and wanting to be a partner. That's I would say the first thing, because we don't need anybody to save us. Our people have been doing this for many generations now, but what we do need is for folks to let us know that they're willing to stand in solidarity with us. And so I think that's the first step. In addition to what Rachel said, I would say look at coalitions that are doing the work locally and familiarize yourself with the resources that are out there. That way, if you do happen to want to go to a family that you're working with, or a friend, a neighbor, anyone, right? You at least are a little familiar with the resources that you're putting out there. And I say that because as a person who's an education advocate, oftentimes we have sheets that we depend on and we just hand them to families, but in the real, that's not helpful. You want to make sure you're giving information that's current and in the now. I would also say tap into the Consulado Mexicano and learn about the things that they offer and some of the resources that they have, and I think that will help you on your journey along the way of wanting to be an ally. But your heart's already in the right place. So I think that I will say thank you, because being here today already lets me know that you're an ally. Feel free to reach out anytime if there's anything I can do to work with you and collaborate too.
Okay, I think maybe one more question, if there's one more. It looks like we have several, but we need to wrap up in just about 5 minutes. So, did I
Right
see
ahead.
2 hands?
No, I
Yes.
think they were
Yes.
pointing all
And
at me,
Greg.
but oh, is there another one? Oh, okay.
Pointing at you.
All right. Yeah, my question is, I have the amazing privilege to work for Heartland as a behavioral specialist, and that gives me the honor to enter families' homes and work with moms and dads and young men and young women. And my question to all of you, what specific mental health change would you guys like to see, especially from our side, being that we're so in the macro or micro level? What specific change would you like to see in your community and specific field where you are working? Thank you. That's my question.
I'll say this: growth mindset, right? Antonio mentioned earlier about not having the victim mentality. And I feel like right now, the only way we can really not just combat that, but be proactive about it is that growth mindset. Being able to take a situation that's just the worst odds and being able to find something to take out of that. I think especially working with young kids, growth mindset, because I feel like even for them, it's way easier for them to feel like the world is just it's at an end, like that sense of hopelessness. And I feel like one of the best ways that we can start working out of this, this just complete sense of hopelessness, like what can we really do to being able to be proactive about it and just completely change the way we think about this. Because I feel like the climate we're being put in is setting us up for not the best outcome. So I feel like starting sooner rather than later with being able to grow and expand from this horrible time, I think that'll be one of the best ways to have us set up for when we do make it out of this, we have something to build off of. We won't have to start over.
Thank you. Gregorio, last question.
Oh,
Did you,
I wanted
Gregorio?
Could I add?
Oh,
I'd
I'm
like
so
to add
sorry.
to that.
Excuse me. Go
And
ahead.
I want to really add to this because this is what I do on a day. So my day-to-day work is working with local small businesses and connecting them with contracting opportunities at SMUD. And I love that you said the growth mindset, because one thing we have to realize is that not everybody is necessarily cut out to go to college or want to go to college or need to go to college. Maybe they want to do something in the trades. So there's this level of opportunity of whether do you want to go into a trade, do you want to become an entrepreneur. So I want to touch on that because there needs to be an understanding that not everyone has to go to college. Trust me, I have 4 kids and they're all in different worlds in their life, right? They're like, no. But I say that because those that are, let's say they're navigating their business, right? Maybe they own their own business now, and now they're being impacted because people don't go outside or they aren't, purchasing or getting a lot of business because of the community and everything that's happening. One thing that a lot of small businesses don't realize is that there are so many resources out there and there's so many opportunities out there just in the governmental space. And I say it speaking from SMUD, but there's state entities, city entities, county entities, and things need to get done and work needs to keep going, right? That in our case, we got to keep the lights on. And what we tell is our businesses is there's opportunity for you to do business with us. Whatever that business is, there may be an opportunity to work with us. And I think that a lot of businesses don't know that. And they're so siloed in their day-to-day work because obviously they got to, keep their business running. But it's attending those networking, those workshops, getting engaged with local chambers and getting their business out there in front of the other community members so that they don't have to work so hard, because eventually all of that, all the people, it's word of mouth, right? And they'll start going, whether it's the restaurant or the store or, get in front of social media. So there's so many resources out there. And then for those that may be saying, you know what, I can't find a space for me, I just want to start my own thing. There's resources for that too. There's like the SBA, SBDC, there's so many things out there and people don't even know where to start. So just, again, growth mindset. And, some of us decided to go to school, but others may want to go do their own thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, so yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to have to wrap it up. It's 3:28, I believe, and we have to turn the room back over at 3:30. So our just deepest appreciation for our panel and for our facilitator. Thank each one of you for your generosity and being here and sharing your experiences and your wisdom with us. And I know that this group will integrate it and use it well. I do want to remind all of you, we have arranged with NorCal Resist to meet with us via a Teams meeting on October 2nd. I believe that's a Thursday at 4 p.m. You should have that calendar invitation. It was sent out by Amanda a couple weeks ago. And the purpose of that meeting is for us to have some wisdom and advice from them about how do we make our agency as safe a place as possible. How do we feel safe going out into the community to meet with families and to provide the partnership that they need. So, I think you will learn some things if you will join in that Teams meeting on October 2nd. And that was arranged by your IDEA Collaborative. So, want to thank everyone for being here, for taking advantage of this opportunity. And so, thank you all very much. Okay.